Hi there, planner friends, and welcome to another plan with me. We are still in my bullet journal type insert here in my fancy Foxy Fix planner. And if you watched my previous plan with me, you'll know that basically week 2 of One Book July was kind of all about reflection. And I was doing some cleanup in my apartment and I found a planner that I had from 2015. It's a sugar paper planner, but I just remember it really clicked that year and I did some of my best planning to date and I was so productive, in part thanks to this beautiful planner I got from Target, which they no longer make, by the way. Companies sell similar items, but they're not the same. So I felt I wanted to go back to that style planning with the aid of my Planner Society stamps. If you don't know, the Planner Society is just a monthly box subscription that you can get for about $30. And every month they send you a bunch of planner decor stuff, from scrapbooking paper to stamps to washi, stickers, the whole shebang. And I subscribed for maybe 5 months, maybe 4 months. But in that time, I got these stamps, and it was really my first introduction to stamps because previously I just never gave any thought to it. And since I got into, I bought some inexpensive sets at Michael's, and I haven't really been utilizing these to their fullest. In fact, that Planner Girl stamp is still in its packaging. The only one I've really used is this clipboard, and even then, I don't think I did a really spectacular job with it. So I decided, since we're still in One Book July, I should try to use these underutilized items. So I'm also kind of altering my stamping style here too, and I'm using 2 inks to kind of color in that clipboard. And overall I use 3 inks for this whole planning spread, and it's the purples basically by the Versa Magic chalk ink. So there's Spring Pansy, Pretty Plumeria, and Purple Hydrangea. And I start off with Spring Pansy to color in the Planner Girl's clothes, which is the lightest shade. Then I go with the second slightly darker shade, which is Pretty Plumeria. And then finally I go for the big guns and drop in that third color, which is Purple Hydrangea, for that effect. And I think it looks nice. Once again, I was kind of branching out a little bit, going beyond just what I would normally do with stamps into something a little bit more special, since these are some fancy Planner Society stamps we're working with this week. And I'm using a rose stamp that is from, I don't remember which month these subscriptions came in, but I believe it was November, the first month I subscribed to it, and it had the months as well as the numbered dates and some like little bitty ephemera parts, and that's where the rose comes from. And I just put a light shade in the middle, the darker shade to color in the leaves of the rose, and that was about it. I sketched out my initial layout using kind of that sugar paper planner as a guide. I counted the lines and it was about 9 lines, so each day is supposed to have about 10 lines to it. But as you'll see, my spacing kind of goes off the rails. And it's just because, despite having clear stamping blocks, I don't use them very effectively, so my spacing goes all over the place. But that's okay. And this like decorative antler stamp is also from that monthly set. So as I was saying, I really wanted to harken back to that successful planner time and kind of mimic the spread that was in that sugar paper planner. So I just kept the boxes approximately the same width as well as the same height. And that left me with a lot of room to basically do whatever I wanted. And some things are coming to light due to One Book July and thinking a little bit more critically about my planning without jumping to another planner when I find I have these roadblocks or something isn't working or something like that. And that is, I am definitely more of a to-do list kind of planner, or task oriented kind of. I just basically like crossing things off, and that holds me accountable. You can kind of see some of it in the example I gave of that 2015 planner, but for every task I put down, I put a box right next to it that had to be marked off. And some of my planning spreads do give me the room for that, but I felt like I wanted to emphasize it even more this go around, so that's where the clipboards kind of come in. So with the clipboard, I wanted to call attention to goals, which in my mind is different from like my to-do tasks. Goals seem to be a little bit less definitive, like more room for interpretation sort of thing. Like you can say something like, make sure to walk the dog the long way around, or try to watercolor 3 times this week, or something like that. To me, that's a goal. To-dos are the menial little everyday things, like you need to go to the post office. Decide when you're going to do that and write it down. Or you should do some laundry. Something like that. Things that are more tangible and can be actually crossed off. And still, this isn't a good iteration of this style. As I'm saying this out loud, I realized how this missed the mark for this week. And I'll post a picture up on Instagram of how the spread worked out, but I barely filled anything in at all, because I realized I was kind of just redundantly writing something on my to-do list and then copying it to the day I decided to assign it to. So I could write go to the post office in my to-do list, and then on the 11th I would write again, oh, so that's the day I need to go to the post office. So I think I still need to maybe mess around with it. But I had a lot of unused space this week. Not that that's necessarily a horrible thing, because I didn't absolutely dislike the planning style of this week. It still kept me on track. I was still referencing it when I had appointments, or when I went to work, or when I had errands to run. So it wasn't a completely forgotten spread. It was just not as productive as I would have liked, but was still way better than last week. But there's still room for improvement. So that's what I look forward to implementing next week. What that spread's gonna look like, I don't know just yet. But I have a feeling it's going to be super, super basic, because this guy took so long to plan. And I mean, it's just like transferring stamps from their acetate to the stamp block to the stamp pad, but oh, it's so many tiny steps that need to be done. So I have crazy respect for stampers. Now I understand why their spreads look so amazing. But still, it takes so much dedication to do that. Overall, I am really happy with the way that these stamps performed for the spread. I mean, I've never run into a crappy stamp, so I'm probably not the best educated on the subject, but I mean, they work fine. The only thing is I need to probably clean my stamp block because they weren't really adhering at times, and once again, I think that's just a failure of mine because I am not an awesome stamper, but that's okay. I decided to actually use one of those month stamps and tell everyone what month this was in, lest there be any room for questioning, I suppose. And here I'm just referencing my pen test page again, trying to see what kind of microns or mild liners I could use to add some contrast to this spread, because despite how nice I think these stamps lent themselves, or how well they lent themselves to the spread, it was definitely missing some sort of decorative element, and I think that was with contrast, because otherwise it's just a lot of white space with some cool toned purple, and that's about it. So I'm using this cool toned gray to kind of create more of a standard box shape around everything, essentially. I think the clipboards already had that shape within them, so they didn't need any extra help. And I'm also using this purple, which kind of goes with all of the 3 ink colors I used really well, just to add some imperceptible shading to my days. Because yeah, I don't think you can tell the difference. And then I started putting these like little dot finials on things and realized, you know what would be awesome and take up space? Why, some polka dots, of course. So that's what I'm doing here. But was that enough? Of course not. It was not enough. I could not let that stand, so I had to add even more to this respectable spread. And I'm just putting a sheet of copy paper underneath my page and going over with that same purple mild liner and just creating a border. And I think this does a good job of like grounding the spread, but since it's essentially like a Crayola marker, you can see the times where you have to layer the marker in order to get the most coverage, and that didn't look so great to me, but that's okay. I went back in with the gray mild liner using the fine nib to try and add some, I guess, some more cohesive line to that whole design, rather than just some sloppy eyeballed in layer. And because that wasn't quite enough, I decided to further this whole mission of contrast and put in some pencil sketch lines. And I think this actually did help a lot. I'm just using my Mabgraves Edition mechanical drafting pencil. And I guess it's the lead in it is pre-selected for people who draw, so it's not supposed to be super smudgy. And I'm just adding some detail with the Planner Girl back with that mild liner to kind of make it stand out a little bit more. And with my trusty almost empty eraser, I'm just cleaning it up. But what you see here is basically how it looks a week later, just with some dates and tasks marked in, but nothing too major. So like I said, I'll post a picture of it to Instagram, but I don't think there's really much that needs to be said overall. So thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it.